Welcome back to Double Doink Dynasty podcast presented by two of your performance enhancing dads. And hell, Mattoon might as well be the third at this point. That's where we're at. Boyer, love you. Enjoy listening to these when you get to it. But we're back. We're going to talk a little bit about the draft, some trades that had happened during the draft, before the draft, after the draft. Hopefully, there's more trades to come. We'll hit you with some power rankings down the road. But let's jump into the draft. So I'm going to screen share real quick. Hold on, because I'm on top of this. You guys gotta listen to me mumble.
Should we start with the first pick of the draft because we all know what it was?
Yeah, go ahead.
Tyler took Marvin Harrison Jr. because he was the first pick in
What?
the draft, and everybody was gasping. Ty, did you ever get any decent offers on the first pick? I know there was a lot of chatter about it.
Um, Not Paul's offer was probably the best. He was looking at giving me the 103, but he wasn't really looking to give me another future first. He was looking at giving me a couple different things, seconds, something else. I did want at least two first for Marvin Harrison, and nothing really came about of it. And then once Roma Dunze went to Chicago, I wasn't sold on the idea of him being with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and
Yeah,
Cole
that's fair.
Kmet. Granted he had a new quarterback, things will change, new system, but no, there just wasn't enough there to force me to move off of the 101. If I moved off, it probably would have been with you for Malik Neighbors 102. Just for the sake of Malik Neighbors, I think goes
He's
in
the
and gets
guy.
100. He's a
Yeah,
160 target guy because nobody else is there to take targets. So,
100%.
but anyway,
That's why I took him at the 102.
Andy takes him at the 102. Paul has the 103, trades it with Boyer. Mattoon, do you have the exact trade on that one?
Yeah, so the trade was Paul acquires the 104 and the 209 and gives up the 103, the 308, and the fifth. So Paul moved back a spot and then moved up around from the third to the second, late third to late second.
All right. And so with that, Boyer moves up, takes Roma Dunze, the clear number three pick in this draft. Paul moves back to number four to take Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not mad about him taking Brock Bowers, but I think where he was, what his team is, just sticking and picking at three with Rome would have probably been best case scenario.
Yeah, my
Um,
feeling is I hate the pick of Bowers. Uh, he's got Mayer from last year, but if Bowers was going to be the pick at three, because Paul liked Bowers and, didn't like Adunze for the same reasons that you were not as jazzed about moving back to the 103 type because he's, too many mouths to feed, rookie quarterback, whatever. And Paul wanted to turn it around maybe faster. Um, that's subjective. But if he was going to take him at 103, get what you can get and still get your guy. I'm fine with making the move back a pick, but I don't like the doubling down on Raiders tight ends that Paul's done here during his rebuild.
Yeah, I'll probably touch a little bit more when we get later in the first round, but just looking at Paul's team, we obviously did our mock draft. He's got London, Addison, and Njigba. He's got QJ and a bunch of other wide receivers that either were busts or haven't done much. He took Mayer last year. His running backs are Brian Robinson and Zach Charbonnet. His team's got a lot of holes, and I felt like he probably should have just taken best available, which at this point was, in my opinion, Odunze, versus doubling down into not only the tight end position, but also the Las Vegas Raiders tight end position. So I personally hated it at the time, but we'll get there more as we
I
continue.
do I do like Boyer moving up, being aggressive here, getting a
Dude,
Dunze to add to his wide receiver room, trying to keep his team. in that situation where he can make that push to continue to win. So Boyer, I do like you moving up, being aggressive on that, and giving up a late second for a late third. I'm not mad about that at all. So good work on that. Paul, I'm not mad about you moving back to Bowers at 4. That was your guy. Go get him. So it is what it is. Moving on, Bernsey takes Brooks at 105. I think we all kind of saw the writing on the wall where running backs, these two running backs, Brooks and Benson, which went at 6, would be the first two running backs off the board. I just wasn't sure they'd be the 105, 106. I thought it'd be 6, 7, 7, 8, maybe. But I'm not mad. Burns already has Lamb, Jefferson, Devonta Smith, or he traded for Devonta Smith at one point. And then he adds running back depth behind Breece Hall because he's got Pollard and Montgomery. So I like the pick. I do like Jonathan Brooks. I was kind of shocked to see him go at 5. But I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, so Ty, real quick, the 5 and the 6 were both owned by Lesac right before the draft. So I'm gonna
And
touch
the
on the
4.
trades and the 4. I'm gonna touch on those trades here real quick, just because I think it's all relevant here. So Lesac gave up the 104 for AJ Brown, and there were some other pieces involved in that, but let me see if I can find it real quick.
It was AJ Brown in the 409
And
for
and
104 and Jaden Reed.
and Jaden Reed. Yep. So Lesac takes the more proven vet. Boyer, they get younger. They also get Jaden Reed. So there goes the 4, which then turned into Odunze. Then Lesac also um, sent Devonta Smith, Josh Downs, Jacoby Myers in the 105 to Burns for Jamar Chase in the 211. So Burns used that, basically turned Jamar Chase into Jonathan Brooks, Devonta Smith, Downs, and Jacoby Myers. So I think Burns was looking at, trying to become a little bit more versatile there. So I think taking Brooks made a lot of sense. He had some question marks at running back. So I get that, which then leads into this next one as well at the 106, where sorry, my phone just went crazy on me. Where Lesac turns the 106 into James Cook. And let's see, in the 311, and he gives Fry the 106, which we'll get into that here in just a second, the 211, the 4th, and Will Levis. Sorry, that was a lot of moving pieces, but that
Yeah, so
was exactly
effectively,
those 3 in a row.
Andrew gave, talking big pieces, Devonta Smith the 104, 105, 106, and ended up with Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, and James Cook. So hell of a haul for a team that is looking to add to Gibbs and Bijan after a disappointing year, but a really quick rebound now, turning all those first round picks that Andrew had into very proven players.
Yeah. No, I like what Andrew did. So
Sorry, Ty, I just wanted to touch on that since those 3 were kind of all right there in a row.
no, all about it. You got the trades, so by all means, touch on them.
Cool.
All
All right.
right. So that means Bowers went 4, Brooks went 5, Benson went 6. I go ahead and move into another big trade that happened. I trade up to get Brian Thomas at the 107. I gave up T. Higgins to get in at the 107 and 110. And I gave up the 202 with it, maybe.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I got Brian Thomas at the 7, Xavier Worthy at the 10, and I gave up the 202, which turned into Keon Coleman with T. Higgins, to take shots on Thomas and Worthy. Thoughts on that?
I like it. Thomas is falling. I think there's a lot of talent there. Maybe, going to Jacksonville was a question mark, but he's a first round receiver. I think he was the clear cut top 4 wide receiver in this class. Not only in the NFL draft showed that, but I think that's where a lot of people had him going earlier in these dynasty drafts. So I think it made a lot of sense. T's got a lot of questions, but you also got the extra first on top of it to take a shot at wherever the board fell, whether that was running back, maybe another quarterback, best available, one of the wide receivers. So basically, I think you turned one wide receiver into two. And then you obviously have the question mark at the in the second round. So
Yeah, I
And
think Thomas could have easily been the fourth guy off the board, so getting him at seven's a good grab. T. Higgins is dealing with his contract demands. We don't know what team he's going to play for, if he's going to hold out, what that's going to look like. So kind of up in the air there. If he ends up somewhere where he can be the number one, maybe you're kicking yourself. I think getting Worthy at the 110 versus Keon Coleman at the 202 is a wash for me, but it obviously gave you the opportunity to get the guy you prefer, moving up 5 picks. But at the end of the day, I think that there's not a huge value difference in that jump aside from just getting your preference. It's really a Brian Thomas for T. Higgins deal here, and the back end is a lot closer. So, you know, the answer to who wins this trade is going to depend greatly on what T. Higgins is doing come this fall.
yeah, he is yet to crack wide receiver 17.
Yeah. But
And
he's
four
been stuck behind
seasons.
Chase. Burrow's been hurt. If he gets somewhere, if he goes to New England and Drake May is a good quarterback, then that looks a lot different. Obviously, it's a very different offense, but if he goes somewhere where he can be the number one guy, I think he can easily get ahead of wide receiver 17.
Yeah. Well, and that for me, it was taking a shot on, well, he hasn't cracked that yet. So let's go take a shot on Brian Thomas, which is going to come in as a 2,
Sure.
but could very well take over the number 1 for Trevor Lawrence, which should be a good quarterback at some point, right? Should.
Yep.
So we'll see. So,
And
all
you're
right.
getting younger. Not bad. You just won a
Yeah. And
championship and added 3 first-round wide receivers.
4.
4.
We haven't gotten to the other one yet, though. So it's fine.
3 so far.
so far.
So then Boyer at the 108 takes Lad McConkey. Paul, his next pick is the 109, takes Caleb Williams.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
had to.
Paul traded up. Paul traded up. He gave up the 203, the 303, and a 25 first, which is mine, for the 109 and the 211, which
Yeah,
he ended up taking Caleb Williams.
which is awful, right? Like he moved up 4 spots or 6 spots or whatever in this draft, and then another 4 spots from the early third to the late second, and then flipped a fourth round for a first and 25. That's a lot to give up. Um, Not a huge fan of what he paid, but Paul's had quarterback issues real bad. And I think Caleb Williams is in the best position of the rookies and was the number one pick for a reason, seems to be the most talented. So, a lot of optimism there, should be able to contribute early and often, hopefully, and for a long time as far as Paul's concerned. I love the pick, but the price that he paid was a bit steep just to get the 109. Losing a future first to move up a handful of spots is a lot.
Yep.
Yep.
All right.
Okay,
So we have to talk.
I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
say something here. And this is why I wanted to hold my breath here on the whole 103, 104 flip. So Paul's got Jordan Love, who I think could be a viable weapon. And so to take Caleb Williams, trading up twice now, and to leave with Bowers and Williams, and you're kind of sitting there going, "Oh shit!" Like with all of these position players on the board, leaving the first round with that, I'm pretty pissed. If I'm in his shoes and had as many holes as I need, you locked up probably the least valuable position in tight end, and then quarterbacks. I mean, Ty, we saw that they're really not as valuable as what we thought when you went and bought Mahomes for fairly cheap, right? 2 firsts, but you got a second back. You know what I mean? So one thing I know is I was caught in the middle of hearing both sides of a potential trade. I'm not going to say who the other party was, But essentially, Paul would have acquired somewhere in the realm of a 105 and a 106 and a early to mid second, or sorry, take that back, take out the second. He would have had to give up a 204, Matt's 25 first, and a 25 second. And he was close to it. The deal breaker was, I think there wanted to be an additional third for fourth pick swap. And Paul ultimately said no. And he was asking me if he was crazy for denying it. And I told him absolutely. At this point in your rebuild, you're going to let a third and a fourth round pick break your rebuild and deny you from having two picks in the top five. If I'm in his shoes and I have as many picks as I had, I'm making that move all day long because the guy had like 20 second round picks over the next 3 years. That's just me. Knowing that from the outside, I think he could have been close to walking away with Odunze and Bowers and Caleb Williams and probably felt a lot better without giving up a whole lot more.
Yeah, it's funny when you have the other people texting you and you're like, oh, hey, by the way, I've got a trade offer in and we're close, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you get two or three angles hitting you at once. And you're like, hey, I got an offer and I got an offer. And you're like, you're all a little special, but I love you all the same, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just probably the only thing is, with originally the 103 and then moving up for the 109, Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey, Odunze, all those guys on the board. I'm not thrilled walking away with Williams and Bowers in a non-tight end premium in a one quarterback league.
Yeah. And so I know Colin Kelly was mad at me, right? So, all right, I took Xavier Worthy at the 110. Kelly ends up taking Jaden Daniels at the 111. Kelly was mad at me. I happened to text him about his pick because he was traveling. And I said, hey, I'm sure you want Caleb Williams, but let me know if you want me to throw a pick in for you if you're traveling, whatever. Like, I'll help take care of it, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, Jeremy sends him something. Jeremy, I think, was the one that sent him something. He's like, hey, Paul's trying to move up here for Caleb Williams. I hear that you're interested. And all of a sudden, it all backfired on me where I told you who I wanted and whatever. So it was great. Um, but we even mocked Kelly with a quarterback at 111 because
Yeah.
we knew that's what his team need was.
Yep.
So I like the pick of Jaden Daniels here for Kelly. Um, I like him being in Washington. I like the skill set. I like Jaden Daniels. I think he could very well be a viable starter for at least a good handful of games this year.
Yeah. Does a lot
Um,
with his legs, which is good for fantasy.
yeah, and so it might not have been bad that I not that he wouldn't have wanted Caleb Williams, right? But at the same time, I don't think it's a bad thing that Kelly held and didn't try to trade up to the 109. Um, and just took Jaden Daniels at 11.
Sorry.
Um, then I come up at the 112 and I take Ricky Pearsall. This might be the most controversial of my picks because I know some people absolutely don't like him. So go ahead. I'll let you guys have your opinions on this first.
He's a first round wide receiver. I think he's got talent. He's in an offense that, I mean, Shanahan clearly knows how to use guys, so I'm not upset about it. It's a crowded room right now with Debo and Ayuk, and Juwan Jennings just got paid today, but I don't think Debo's going to be there for much longer. There's been a lot of talks about Ayuk potentially getting traded. I think it makes a lot of sense to grab the guy that the Niners took in the first round because, I mean, their offense is good every year. Not mad about it.
Yeah. Would I have particularly preferred Keon Coleman or Xavier Leggett? Yeah. But this is your fourth first round pick. So take the guy that you're most excited about. He's riding pine for 2 years, anyways.
Yep.
Oh, and that was my thought is even if he sits this year and is a role player this year, I drafted Worthy and Thomas and Harrison, and I've still got Amon Ra and Puka and George Pickens and Dotson and all the guys, right? I got guys to cover.
For sure.
So for me, it was okay. He can be a taxi guy for a year, and I'm cool with that. Keon Coleman, I wasn't sold on his tape. I wasn't sold on. The only thing I was sold on Coleman was his landing spot.
Sure.
Um, Adonai Mitchell, I didn't like his landing spot with the Colts as well. Um, Xavier Legette was the other one because he was a first round to Carolina. They traded up to get him. But I figured the Niners was probably a better landing spot than Carolina. So I took Pearsall, and I know some people love him, some people hate him, and there's not a lot of people that sit in the middle. So I know there are people in our league that are going to say that was a bad pick, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. But I took a shot on my guy at that point. So
Yeah.
before we move to round two, we have to do a little. Pal, what are you drinking?
Andy, Iowa,
I'm dry today.
I apologize about that.
drinking a nice ice blue mountain refreshing Coors Light,
Hotel lobby style, baby.
hotel lobby style.
Um, King of beers for the King of fantasy for now, and then I'm gonna go to Mick Ultra later. So
How long did you plan that?
Classy.
this no, I just that's been my slogan for a long time because I've always been the King of fantasy. You just didn't know it yet.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, before we get to the second round, there was a trade that happened, and I was a little shocked to see this happen, but I'll go ahead and just spill the tea. So Burns acquires the 201, the 403, and my 26 third. So he acquires the 201 and some other stuff for, hang on. Or sorry, he gives up the 201, the 403, and something else. And he gets Dobbins, the 205, a 25 second, and a 26 fourth. So essentially, I'm gonna scratch out the fourths and I'll leave the third in. Dobbins the 205 and a 25 second for the 201 and a 26 third.
It feels like a lot, right? To move up 4 spots in the second round.
I thought so.
Dobbins and another second to get a third back and move up 4 spots. It feels like
Mind
a
you,
lot.
mind you, I want to get some accuracy here, Ty, because this involved you. Let's uh let's all review J.K. Dobbins just not too long ago. J.K. Dobbins was involved in a trade with Sam Laporta in that in a 24 second for Kamara, Purdy, and the 101.
That's a fact.
So in a sense, the way I look at it, you gave up the 101 Kamara, Purdy, a third for the 205, the 20, what was it? 205, a 25 second. You're giving up a lot, essentially, for the 201 in Laporta, is I think what this shakes out to be. So I don't know. If I give up that much for Dobbins, I'm holding him.
Yep. And then I loved it because I turned around and got Mike Evans with the Purdy trade. So
Yep.
I was
Yep.
stoked about everything happening at that point.
Yep. So I'm not trying to rehash everything from last season, but just realizing, hey, there was a common denominator and it was J.K. Dobbins in both trades. And I felt like a lot was given up for J.K. Dobbins on one way, and then he was let go for nothing. So I think the 205 in the second alone would have been enough to move up to the 201, but throwing in JK.
And for Corum too, who's pretty blocked by Kyron Williams. So you know, we'll see how that
We'll
goes.
see. Yep, we'll see. Time will tell.
I'm not mad about Corum. I think Corum will get some run, but Kyron's definitely not. It's his job to lose.
Yep. Yep.
All right. So then
All right.
so Corum was the 201, Coleman's 202, Mitchell is 203, Polk 204, Leggett 205. So we kind of lump all of these in together. Jerry got Mitchell and Leggett, Paul took Polk, and Bernsey got Coleman. I think Coleman and Leggett, I think, should have been the top two off of those. Granted,
Mm-hmm.
Jerry got Leggett, so it didn't matter. Jerry did take their guy with Adonai Mitchell at the 203. Paul took Polk at 204, which I was kind of shocked about that one.
Same.
Um, I'm not mad about it, right? Because Paul had one, two, three, four, five picks in the second round. So he he took him, and then actually we'll talk about another guy later in a second, but that's the guy I like him almost better than Polk at this point.
I agree.
But Adonai Mitchell is fine. I think he'll be a fine role player in the NFL. Um, I wasn't sold on him. I thought he could have been solid, but his landing spot in Indy, I'm with Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, still having Pittman there, all of that. I just don't know how much Mitchell's going to get. Um, so we'll see. You guys are higher on Keon Coleman than I am probably. But Burns took a shot on him after trading away Jamar Chase. So I mean, it's definitely a good shot for Burns at the 202. Getting rid of Chase, Stephon Diggs out of Buffalo. So Coleman does make sense. Xavier Legette being a first round pick should have been probably the 201, 202, 203. Falls to the 205, so it's not crazy fall, but still probably more than it should have been.
Yeah.
Um,
Carolina was just so bad last year, but they also had shit receivers. Now they've got Deontay and Leggett. I don't know if that's enough to make Bryce Young good or not, but he's at least got
but
weapons.
but Adam Thielen, an older receiver, put up a decent fantasy year last year with Bryce Young. And what says Leggett can't do that? Especially Leggett
That's
being a
true.
gadgety type guy. Get him the ball and let him go. So I don't know. I was just shocked to see him fall to the 205.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And then you
Um,
got Paul
yeah,
making a run on picks here. I'm going Jalen Wright, Corley. We'll skip McCarthy, going to Jer Fry, and then Lloyd. So Paul takes two running backs out of the next three. He's takes his second wide receiver of the second round. So he's starting to use those seconds a little bit, filling those skill player roles.
yeah. I'm not mad about Jalen Wright. He's definitely hidden on that depth chart as well in Miami. Um, so he takes Jalen Polk in New England, which who knows what that's going to be. Jalen Wright, which is buried in Miami. Malachi Corley hopefully should be the two in New York. Um, we'll see. They did trade for what Mike Williams,
Mike
but I
Williams, yeah, they
I
signed
don't
Mike
trust
Williams,
that.
but
And then Marshawn Lloyd is actually my favorite pick of all three of those. I think Marshawn Lloyd gets a little bit of run this year, and then possibly even next year because Jacobs isn't going to hurt the cap next year. Marshawn Lloyd could be a big piece going forward. I did reach out to Paul after the draft. I've still reached out to him trying to get Lloyd, but the price tag's too high for me to make that move. He's not interested in making that move right now.
I mean,
Um,
Paul needs a running back more than anything, so the price tag should be high.
right. And he's taking his shots on guys in the second round here, and I'm not mad about it. I just wish I tried to trade up hard into the second round, but I didn't have enough to go do it without giving up Underhill's first next year, which wasn't happening. So
Yeah, so here's in retrospect where I would have done things a little bit differently with Paul is, I mean, we've already talked about he had the 103, he traded up to get the 109. I mean, just looking at this board, he's got one, two, three, four, five second round picks as it stands, plus a bunch next year. I would have tried to move as many of those, package those along with he's got, I think, some thirds and fourths, whatever. Try to move all of those into the 201, 202, 203, maybe even Ty. I don't know if he even reached out to you about the 112 or not, but that's just what I would have done if I were Paul. I mean, give up 3 seconds to go get into the 112, give two to go get into the 201, and grab what you think maybe is a little bit more of a guaranteed hit versus, some of these other guys. Go get a Keon Coleman, but just me.
yeah, I mean, I would have been okay with all of these seconds turning into a earlier second, later first, giving a shot at a hiring guy. But Andy said it, right? Paul's still in the rebuild, so he's
Yep.
taking shots on guys too. So taking what, 5 picks in the second round
So
isn't a
shotgun
bad
approach.
thing. Yeah. Some of us have run shotgun method before, and you start doing okay. So
So Big Stu comes back in the second round. Roman Wilson. How you feeling, Andy?
I mean, I had the 210 and the 301, and I was hoping to get Wilson and Burton, and Paul took Burton right after me, so that was a bummer, but I'm happy with Wilson.
yeah, I I like Wilson. There's been a lot of talk on Wilson. Is he's got an easy path to wide receiver two because Pickens should be the wide receiver one. So he's got an easy path to playing time that late in the second round. Um, you should have production out of him, which is what you need as a contender at this point, right? Or at least
Yep.
trying to contend for your division with Lee Sack and Burns. The next pick, Burton, was the one that I thought should have probably gone a little earlier. I really like Burton. Again, reached out about Burton because I like Burton. But nothing's fallen that way. Um, so Paul, great pick on that. Great pick on Lloyd. I think you did well with your 209, 211.
Agreed.
Um, so I'm not mad about the draft Paul had. Before the draft, I thought Paul should have been moving up to try to solidify an earlier pick with all of those seconds. But I'm not mad about it, right? I think I would have adjusted a couple guys that I picked, but that's preference, right? Like I would have picked Leggett over Polk. New England and Carolina both bad. Um, you know, otherwise you're taking your shots and grab the he grabbed a couple wide receivers, couple running backs. So I actually like the way that Paul built out, especially in that second round, especially since he grabbed tight end and quarterback in round one. Do I think Paul's a contender this year? No. Do I think he's a contender next year? Probably still not, unless these guys hit hard. But he's
Mhm.
got a lot. He did shotgun method, and they were all first and second rounders, right? So it's better than me shotgun second and third rounders.
Yep.
So Drake May falls to the 212. Nolan picks up Drake May. After that, are there any I do. I have one pick after that that I really want to talk about that I'm kind of mad about is Jared Fry took Ben
Y'all
Sinnott.
know which one it is.
Ben Sinnott went at the 303.
I
I was sitting
loved it.
at
Loved it.
304. I'm so mad. Everybody knows I take a tight end.
You should have
And they
took him at the 112 if you wanted him, Ty.
yeah, oh okay. But I couldn't. I again tried to trade up, tried to get into that early spot to get him, and sitting at the 304, I missed him because Jared Fry went ahead and snagged him. So I do like that pick, Ben Sinnott to Jared Fry. Anybody else, you guys, that really stands out to you guys here in the third, fourth, fifth round? Good picks, bad picks, something in between.
I mean, there's definitely some upside guys that I'm curious to see what shakes out. I mean, I don't hate Boyer grabbing Penix. I mean, is it gonna help him right away? No. I mean, Herbert hasn't necessarily been the guy that I think we all were expecting him to be for many reasons. So I don't hate him for at the 307 taking another quarterback that went what 107, 108, 109, whatever pick Penix went. Um, Joe Fry apparently loves quarterbacks because they've got like 9 of them now. Since they grabbed Levis in that trade as well. The other one that I'm curious to see what shakes is McCaffrey in Washington. He's extremely versatile. Obviously, he's CMC's brother, but he's in an offense that doesn't have a lot of skill players. So I mean, if it's in his blood, he could just find a role. I think he could be a sneaky guy to watch out for, however they use him.
All right, so I'm gonna go to the 306. Braylon Allen. It lands with the Jets, which isn't the most ideal landing spot, right? Um, they've got Brees, they've got Izzy Abanikanda, which I don't know what the hell he's gonna be. He's on my taxi, so I'd like him to be something, but I think Braylon Allen's a better talent. I'm shocked that Braylon Allen, because of all the hype, because of everything he had through college, the freshman year production he put up,
Mhm.
that Braylon Allen fell to the 306 behind Vidal, behind Davis, honestly, behind Marshawn Lloyd. I think the benefit was Marshawn Lloyd landed in Green Bay, which is a better fit
Yep.
for a running back. But Braylon Allen dropping to the 306 and that being Matt's first pick, um, I I like that pick for Matt. Um, I think it's a shot at the 306, and I think it's a high upside type shot if he gets a roll. So
Andy Green,
Audric
grabbed a
Estimate
guy I
fall into
like.
the three.
Yep.
Audric Estimate fall into the 310. I like that pick for Boyer as well. Grabbing an upside running back in Denver, due to Williams being hurt all the time and Denver just being bad. He could get a little bit of a run as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna go late. I like Dylan Johnson going at the 5'10. Tennessee's running back room is complicated, I think, right now, but he put up good numbers in college, had a rough combine. I think that for a fifth round pick, as fifth round picks are going away, that's one that I could see working out.
Yeah. I love all these dart throws in the fourth and fifth round for running backs. There are a lot of them.
Yep.
Somebody's going to pan out,
Yep.
and it's going to be great for that person that drafted him in the fourth or fifth.
Yeah, Ali in Baltimore, Shipley. There's a lot of them. Tracy.
Yeah, Tyrone Tracy. I like that pick for
Yep.
Nolan. Um, New York really doesn't have a running back at this point. Devin Singletary.
Excuse you, they got
My
a
bad.
bell cow,
They do have a
Saquon replacement.
yeah, that's what they have with Tyrone Tracy. I
No, rude.
but yeah, so those are a couple of the guys that I like late. Some of the tight ends, I mean, they're shots, so it
Yep.
is what it is, but I don't expect any of them to pan out anytime soon. Even
Yeah,
JT Sanders, I don't expect much out of. Um, Malik Washington with Miami, a lot of analysts are hyping him up,
he's
but
fast. Miami likes fast guys.
right, but they've got Waddle and they've got Hill and they've got
I don't
seven
think there's
fast
room
running
for him.
backs.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Devontae Walker falling um is a big one, right? Going to Baltimore here. He was at one point hyped up to be right up there with Brian Thomas, right up there at the wide receiver 5 or 6 in this draft. He goes to Baltimore. He has a little bit of a rougher combine. He just, I don't know. I was shocked to see him fall so far, but also that Baltimore landing spot, I think, is what did him in. But he
Yeah.
was at one point in time, he was hyped to be that wide receiver 5, 6, and he was absolutely not that in this draft. So that was one of the shockers to me that he just kept falling and falling. But um he went from hype to early fourth round pick. So we'll see. All right. Any other mentions on this last 3 rounds?
Nope. Nothing for
All
I
right.
me.
was ecstatic to get Rattler. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, you needed Rattler. I know you're all about it. We'll talk about him in a couple of years when he gets a starting job.
You're right,
Um,
because Derek Carr is so good.
well,
So good.
why get Rattler hurt when the whole team's going to be bad?
Yeah, that's true.
I listen. Both of them can dump it off to Kamara just as nice. It's fine. But anyway, no, Mattoon, any last trade situations we need to cover?
The only one that's really shaken since the draft, it's not a big one. In all honesty, it's kind of just whatever. Nolan sends a 27 second to Jared Fry for Michael Wilson and a pair of fourths. Um, Thoughts on it before I give my own 2 cents on it?
It was a bit rich, but he's a young guy. I like Michael Wilson. I don't think I'd have paid a second for him, but get your guy.
Yep. Ty, are you frozen?
No. I think that giving up a second was too much. Maybe he's good, but I I don't know. At this point, giving up a second for Wilson was just too much for me. I'm out on that price tag.
Yeah, so Nolan and I we were talking about it right when it happened. And here's what I told him my issue with it was. Nolan already dug himself in a hole by kind of getting uh poor of picks. He didn't have a whole lot of picks to begin with, or at least quality picks. So by making that move, all he has right now is a 25 second, a 26 first, and a 27 first is in terms of quality picks. Um, so he he didn't need him. He's already got DK and Waddle and Wilson and whoever else I'm missing, Watson, and DJ Moore. So I don't know. It's not the resource I would have been spending a second on at this point. But I mean, hey, go get your guy. I can't be mad at it. It's a 27 second, so it's not going to kill him. He's got time to get it back, but just would have done it a little differently if it were me.
Yep. So we've got a couple months here of dead off season. We might come with hit you with some early power rankings with me being towards the top because that's the stuff I want to talk about, right? Um, we will hit you with some trades as they come in. But otherwise, I don't think we have a whole lot else to cover on the draft. Um, I'm glad we got through it. Nobody bitched too hard. And that 12-hour clock I upped it to didn't even come into play. So all you guys that whined about me upping it 4 hours can go shove off. And it's going to be okay. But on that, all you guys that hated the 12-hour clock, hit that like and subscribe and bell and the things so you know when we post this stuff. So hopefully you hated our analysis of the draft, but there it was. So on that, we'll see you guys next time. We're out.